We're not there yet. I am hopeful that we will get there. I think certainly Prime Minister Sunak and the British government seem to be very serious about coming to an agreement and settling this issue. And I think there is increased flexibility from the European Union side, which includes Ireland, around coming to an agreement. And, we all acknowledge that there are other issues that we need to deal with. The protocol is important, but there's war in Ukraine, there's a global recession underway, an energy crisis, inflation, and Europe and the UK need to work together, and any kind of barrier to further cooperation that we can remove is in the interest, I think, of everyone.
I'll come to those other important issues, if I may, in a moment, sir, but just has the heat gone out of this one as well? The rhetoric across the Channel, across the Irish Sea, just the nonsense said by, dare I say it, some members of the British government previously, see some of the hotter voices in Europe as well. Have things calmed down a bit post-Brexit, do you think?
I think there's been a concerted effort on all sides to create the right conditions and the right environment in which an agreement can be made. It should never be about winners and losers. It should be about an outcome that works for, above all, people and businesses in Northern Ireland, but also, of course, for Ireland and Britain too. One thing I should say is we shouldn't forget what the objective of the protocol was. Brexit disrupted relations between Britain and the EU and disrupted relations on the island of Ireland. The protocol was about making sure there's no hard border between North and South, and there isn't. And it was about making sure that the integrity of the single market was protected, and it has. And also the Northern Ireland economy is outperforming the rest of the UK economy at the moment. So there are a lot of positives to the protocol, but a huge difficulty has been the fact that there are new barriers to trade between Britain and Northern Ireland, which is causing a difficulty for businesses, and also the fact that the unionist parties, which don't make up a majority anymore in Northern Ireland, but are still extremely important, and that they aren't able to accept the protocol in its current form. And while it isn't always possible to achieve, ideally we would like to have both communities supporting any solution.
Okay, right, well, let's just hope we get into the tunnel soon, sir. Look, you mentioned the possibility of recession in Europe and globally. It's something that's dominating a lot of the conversations here in Davos as well. The Irish growth last year was quite extraordinary. I think you're potentially looking at, when we get the final fourth quarter figures, some in the region of 11-12% possibly as well. There is going to be a slowdown this year, but it doesn't look like necessarily Ireland's going to go into recession. But it's better for me to ask you what you think about the economic outlook.
Well, we built our budget for next year based on certain assumptions, inflation being in around 7% and very slow growth. Now, we don't just use GDP because that can be quite distorted in Ireland because of the presence of many large companies. We tend to use some other measures like GNI Star and modified domestic demand, and using those figures, we don't expect to go into recession, but we do think that there will be moderate growth. Maybe half of 1%, but crucially the jobs market is still very strong.
Yeah.
We're close to full employment. But even though we're not going to go into recession, people in Ireland are feeling the pinch. Prices are rising, and prices are rising faster than incomes are, and people are really hurting because of that. And thankfully, one of the things we can do as a government, because our public finances are in a good state, is we can help people with their energy bills, with pensions, with welfare increases, reduced income taxes, reduce the cost of childcare just in the last few weeks.